everybody, grab your Bible and a pencil and a journal and maybe even a cup of coffee and join in our conversation. But first, I would like for you to write this down. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God finished his work that he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all of his work that he had done. So God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all of his work that he had done in creation.
Hey everyone, welcome to Write This Down with Dot Bowen. My name is Cara. I am Dot's daughter. And every week we sit down together and we have a conversation about Jesus, scripture, or what God might be teaching us. And we are talking about the spiritual practice of Sabbath in this episode. And don't go away. Please dive in and listen to this conversation. I know the Sabbath can kind of be one of those topics where it's like, yeah, like rest, whatever. But we think that it's a super important spiritual discipline that we would love for you to join in our conversation.
Don't you love to rest?
I am not a type A.
Mm-hmm.
So I rest very well.
You do that.
That is one of the things I excel at.
You're good at the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a difference between Sabbathing and resting, because you can rest and not Sabbath. But can you Sabbath and not rest?
Well, actually, Sabbath came out of the rest. That's why, the Sabbath came out of Genesis from the very beginning. That was what God rested and from his work. He wasn't tired. God doesn't get tired like you and me.
Yeah.
But he set that, in motion. And of course, it, went on into Exodus where Moses, established the Sabbath. And, there's so many things about the things that we're talking about, because maybe you're watching and listening and you're thinking, why do I care about the Sabbath? I love to rest,
that'd be nice.
Yeah. Be nice. But these are some of the things I think as a follower of Jesus, a lot of people don't really understand that maybe we, need to kind of know practice. These things. They are spiritual.
It's an important,
and it doesn't make you a Christian, obviously,
right.
but it's some of the things that obviously God suggested, and I think that, or commanded, actually. And I think that it's important to know these things because Jesus said that Sabbath is for man, not for God. Mm-hmm. And so the Sabbath and all of God's commandments.
Well, I think any of the spiritual practices are for us and not God. Right. You're not
going to change
reading
God.
Scriptures, prayer, worship, fasting. I don't know what the other ones are. But that doesn't do anything for God in terms of that, but it helps us in our heart and relationship.
Yeah, and I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking, we were created by God, and God knows what we need, and
for God,
and I think that these are things that God is saying. Like, if I created you, I know how best you would work, and someone like you, I may not have to encourage so much about rest, but when you think about the Sabbath and God rested, you see it on every spectrum. Like, you'll talk with somebody and the Sabbath is about going to church. You'll see someone and they'll think the Sabbath is Saturday.
Yeah.
And why does why do followers of Jesus go on Sunday?
Yeah.
And so there is a lot of confusion about Sabbath. And so I thought, well, what, again, we talked about what we're going to talk about because our conversations, and I do think sometimes that can be confusing as a person and a follower of Jesus of what does that mean to observe the Sabbath?
So my church in Nashville that I go to, they are very intentional. They talk a lot about spiritual practices, and Sabbath is one of them. They did a whole, and I'm sure that other churches I've attended do, but I feel like the way my church, I don't know, it's
just more intentional.
Yeah. And so I feel like I've learned a lot, which has been helpful. And one of the things that when they talk about the Sabbath, it's like resting from achieving, from doing. And so how they talk about Sabbath, it's like whether it's 24 hours, and depending on your life and work, and, some people work on Sundays, so maybe you can't do it on Sunday, but being intentional at just taking time to rest from doing, from achieving, like basically trusting that the Lord like what needs to get done will get done. And like, or if it's like even financially that the Lord will provide. So it's like this, it's not just sit on the couch and watch Netflix.
Or it's not like I gotta go to church.
Or like just not doing anything. And this is what it's really taught me is it's delighting. It's doing things that where you delight in the Lord and you're just resting in him, like resting that he will provide. So whether that be financially or providing time, you know, like he can expedite time. Like if it's getting things done, like there's one girl in my community group who she's a nurse. And so she works very long days. She doesn't work nights, and so she only has one day a week where, well, I guess 2 days, but one day where it's like her getting everything done kind of thing. And so Sabbathing is kind of stressful for her because she's like, am I going to get everything done? And I mean, I don't want to like speak for her, but I've heard her say like how impactful it's been for her to observe and practice the Sabbath because it's like shown her that how the Lord provides in other ways, like how he'll provide financially with the other 6 days, or he'll provide time, like everything that she needs, like truly needs to get done, whether that's her meals or for her husband or for her, you know, whatever, her household. She gets what needs to get done. So it's like showing her like, oh, like I don't have, it doesn't all rely on me. Like the Lord's got it. Yeah. The Lord will.
It's like saying not having the Sabbath doesn't mean I'm going to get everything done and it's going to be beneficial. Having the Sabbath is
it's God's like trusting the Lord. It's resting
of trusting him and saying, I may not get everything done, but God's going to provide what I need to get done. Well, and
that's what I think of with rest. And I think of, I think it's in Isaiah talking about the Israelites I guess it's probably a lot through the Old Testament, but there's a verse in Isaiah talking about how the Israelites didn't enter, or one of the reasons, they didn't enter into God's rest.
That's in Hebrews. That's in Hebrews.
Well, maybe it's both.
In Psalms, I think, where God was mad at them and said,
yeah, you didn't enter my rest. And
you did. I didn't allow you.
And I think that, to me, that I think that, I don't know, like exactly, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I read that as you didn't trust me. Like there's an element of Sabbathing where I think it's trusting the Lord that he will provide, that he will give you the energy and the time, you know, he will, what needs to get done, like he will provide.
And what you're saying is it's not a day, you know, because a lot of people are like, well, this is a Sunday or this is
I think
a
the
Saturday.
Day helps.
I mean, but I'm saying the day of the month, day of the week. It's not a Sabbath.
Oh, I trust in God one day and then not trusting him.
No, but in Exodus, it was a Saturday. All in the Israelite, all the Jewish culture it was always Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not, and of course, Jesus comes and calls them all hypocrites because they would say you can't do anything. And then they would turn around and they would say you could only go so far, you know, you could only walk so far, or you couldn't work. But then if, you know, their animal got caught in a, thing and it was going to cost them money, all of a sudden they would change the rules and say, well, I can at least pull out something. So actually, I believe that Jesus was crucified and was found guilty because of his there's a view of the Sabbath. Like they got mad at him.
Well, because they were a little bit more legalistic about it.
Yes.
And that's where I think, and what my church has kind of taught me is that it's more about your heart posture where it's trusting the Lord. So like if you're a farmer, your sheep, or you're a shepherd and your sheep's in need, like that's not like your heart is not this legalistic, like I can't do anything. It's a posture of worship. It's a posture of like trusting the Lord.
It's not a work thing. And that was what Jesus was saying, because Jesus, you know, would heal on the Sabbath. Jesus, you know, they'd be walking through the fields and he would peel grain and feed it to his disciples. And they would leave and they wanted to crucify him because they said that he was not observing the Sabbath. But I find that what you're saying, you know, I didn't know that's what you were going to say.
Well, yeah.
We never know what you're going to say. But the reason that's why I did Genesis 2 is because God had done all creation. And then he rested, he stopped and enjoyed it. And I do feel that a lot of times we can't see God's presence. We can't enjoy the things that God has given us because we're just busy, and we don't stop long enough to reflect and long enough to look around and say, look what God's done. And, you know, because a lot of times, you know, getting stuff, and I found this, I can preach on this, you can buy something and you just want to buy more and more. I mean, if you...
I've never done that.
Yeah, right. And, fruit doesn't fall from the tree.
Yeah.
And, but, it's like, well, I got one pair of shoes. I need 15. In my husband,
Well, yeah. I like this. I need 10 of them.
Do you need that? What's a need? But, I just think that a lot of times, and I've seen people that get really involved in Christian work. Mm-hmm. And they get so caught up, and they're finding a lot of their identity in what they're doing for God, but they're just working constantly, and they almost feel guilty if they're just not doing something,
Yes, which that puts your trust in yourself.
That's right.
And your own ability.
You're getting your identity from it. But two, it's also putting you in a position where you don't have time to enjoy and reflect what God has already done. You're always looking for something else to do. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, talk about type A or type B. Like they want, instead of excusing it, calling it sin, basically, because God, that was a commandment. It wasn't a suggestion for us to rest. And like you said, God did say, I'm going to punish.
Yeah,
I'm
I was trying to find it with Isaiah, what I was thinking of, but I don't know if I can find it.
I will not allow them to enter in my rest because they didn't trust me.
Yeah.
And I think what you're saying is you get so busy, you get caught up in your own strength, and you just want to do more and more and more.
Yeah.
And then there's a satisfaction of look what all I've done. And then there's pride, look what all I've done. But even though those are heart issues, there is benefit. And there's a reason God said, I want you to stop and reflect and worship me.
Well, I think that's where, and I touched on this a minute ago, it's delight. Mm-hmm. That's where I think the Sabbath is. I think it's delighting. It's delighting in the Lord, delighting in what God has done. Like, the Genesis where God took a Sabbath, like he was like, yes, he was resting from his work and toil for those 6 days of creation. But
I don't think he was tired.
Yeah, I think he was enjoying. He was delighting in what he.
Yeah. It is good.
See, there you go.
Because he talks about it is good. It is good, and he was able to see that.
Yeah,
and I think and this is what busyness does. And we've talked about this with Mary and Martha. Busyness and working. There's a danger in it. Number one, we start doing it in our own strength. And then number two, we don't enjoy what we're doing, and then it creates a thirst to want to do more and more and more. But the real sad part about it is we don't see God in the midst of it. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it's become what we get accomplished and what we can do for God. And we just think, and like you said, we can get very prideful. And you're talking about heart issue. And I think that there is a heart issue. And I think it's not being able to rest and trust God. And I think when you're talking about resting and trusting God, being still and know that I'm God, I think that that's the hardest part about the Sabbath as a lifestyle, as a more of an application of it. This is not what God was talking about. This is not what Jesus is talking about. Sabbath was talking about taking a rest and reflecting on all that God had done. Mm-hmm. The Sabbath, again, in Exodus, all of those times was really about literally stopping and cease,
Yeah.
But I think for us too, we can put an application in that, in the fact that the other reason to consider a Sabbath is to reflect on who we're trusting in.
Yeah.
And who, we're not, and it's hard to wait on God. It's hard to step back and not actively try to control the situation. Mm-hmm. So if you're an overthinker or you're someone that's in control, try to, which we all struggle with, I think that the Sabbath principle would be very difficult for you.
I'm not great at Sabbathing. And I think more if I forget, like it's not a regular practice, but I want it to be. So, I feel challenged in that way where I'm like, and I think too, into the application side of it, what my church has taught me, again, it's like delighting. So what I might delight in is going to be very different than what you would delight in. Like I feel like a Sabbath for you would be taking 24 hours, plant flowers around your house and water them, to me, that would feel like toil. Like that would feel like work. So that's not how I would Sabbath. I would not be enjoying the Lord. I would be like, why did you create these flowers? I'm over it.
Yeah.
So
The weeds would bother you.
yes. And it just would not be enjoyable for me. But for you, like that would be something that you're genuinely, like you're not achieving something. You're not, like you're delighting in the creation. You're delighting in what you're doing. Like it would be restful to you because you are delighting in it.
Well, and that's what I consider studying.
Yeah.
I could sit and study scripture 24/7. And
I would not, that would be, to me, and not saying, I mean, I would enjoy that, but to me, it would feel like more I'm achieving something, like I'm doing something. So like, I mean, I would like watching, we were like college football, it's the fall.
Yeah.
Like I would delight in that. So, and maybe I Sabbath more than I realize in that sense, because I do that.
But can you see God
But
in
I'm
that?
not really, I think if you're doing it with the mentality of delighting in the Lord, like you're intentional, you're aware of it.
So if you're watching college football, which you love, and you're with your family or friends or whatever, how do you delight in the Lord and watching?
Well, I think if I'm watching it with like family and friends, like last weekend, we were like, because I'm with my family. So it's like, it's the fellowship of it. And we're watching something. Yeah. Like we're watching something fun. Like that's fun to me. So there's like that element, but I don't think you have to like, it's not like over spiritualizing it, but it's just something you enjoy.
Well,
I just enjoy.
Again, Sabbath is a spiritual. It's not, it's just not, I'm going to go and take a vacation and enjoy the money that God's given me. I'm going to go into a spa. But if you wanted to say, look, God has given me this day off, and so as you're going to the spa or whatever, then you would want to delight and say, God, thank you for the opportunity to be able to do this, that kind of thing. Because we don't want to indicate it's just about not doing anything and doing what you love to do.
No, I think it's delighting in what God's giving you. And, and I think that, I mean, me watching college football, like I delight in that, like that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that is the characteristic of the Lord that at least I forget, where he's fun. Mm-hmm. Like there's an enjoyment to him. He has a personality, he gave us personalities. We're his reflection, I think he's funny, like I think like there's things like that and so, with college football, like for me, I genuinely enjoy it, and it may not be a spiritual experience, but it's something that I think God's.
But if you can reflect on the gift that God's given you to be able to sit and watch it or whatever, that would be the most important. I don't want to ever indicate that we're just thinking, just go to a football game and you're enjoying the Sabbath. What we're saying is the Sabbath means that I'm looking at what God has given me. Yeah. And I'm using that as an opportunity. I'm setting back. I'm resting into the fact I'm being able to enjoy the gifts that God's given me. Yeah. And that's a Sabbath. That's resting
and I can do that. That's where I think it goes. It's different for every person.
Right.
I can do that, but someone else may not be able to.
No,
Maybe
I've seen a lot of people almost act ugly. At a football game.
Right.
So that you're just, what you're saying is, I can actually even take a football game because I enjoy that, I have a bent toward that, and be able to be thankful that I can and have that moment of time. Because a lot of people would say the last thing I want to do is to sit and watch a football game, which would be me.
Yeah, and the other time, maybe it's going on a hike because I enjoy being outside or doing some, just being with my dogs on my back porch. Creation, like there's, I think it's delighting in the Lord and resting in Him and being thankful for what He's given you, like whatever that may be. It may be like, I know some people go and do something with their kids, like go bowling, or I don't know, just like, it's just like going and just enjoying, like what God's given you with your flowers. Or,
and I think that's think that's what God's doing. I think that, again, God wasn't tired. So it's not about, I just want to go and rest. It's not about taking a nap. It's not about going and doing the things that I enjoy, because that's why I chose Genesis. There's so many scriptures. It started in Genesis where God established the seventh day to rest. It goes on into Exodus where Moses was commanded and told the people to take the Sabbath. And then it goes on up into the New Testament. Jesus did not abolish the Sabbath, even though He put His love and His kindness toward us or toward mankind. He would help people on the Sabbath, which, when Jesus healed on the Sabbath, that was, the Pharisees immediately went to go and try to crucify him. So it's not necessarily about working or not working, ceasing or not working. But when Jesus healed on the Sabbath, there was a man that needed to be healing. And he was reflecting.
I was going to say he was glorifying. He was glorifying God.
He was showing everybody, I am the Messiah, I'm God. So the reason that Jesus, they got mad at Jesus because they considered a Sabbath as part of their religious practice.
Yeah.
And Jesus was saying the Sabbath was for you so that you can enjoy what I'm doing in your life.
Yeah.
And to rest and enjoy that.
Well, I was going to say, like, there are times, we'll just use the college football example, or even like with your flowers. Like if you're doing it and not saying that I have to like consciously be thinking about the Lord throughout the whole thing, but if there's not an intentional heart posture, because I think that's it too, where there's like, just because I'm watching college football does not mean that I'm Sabbathing.
No.
But if I'm like, okay, like I'm intentionally carving out these 24 hours and here's what I'm going to do. And I think having a plan is super helpful because then you don't like kind of get sucked into like our human performance, thing. And especially for people who do have, like my friend, like I was saying, who's a nurse, like she has to be super intentional when she Sabbaths to like on that other one day that she has meal prep, like doing all the things. So she does set up her week well. So there's a lot of like intentionality behind it. But I think that's, with any relationship, like when people are intentional in their relationships, I feel like anytime I have like truly Sabbath, I've really experienced the Lord in a really special way. And that's where I would like to make it a weekly thing, a weekly practice. But yeah, I'm not great at it.
Well, I think for me, because anybody want to tell me not to work, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
So I have to watch my heart. I think for me, the principle of Sabbath is something that I feel like for me, it's not necessarily I'm going to take a day of my day to not do something that I normally would do. Like I'm just going to, do something. I'm going to enjoy my family because God's given it. The Sabbath that's hardest for me is to cease from trying to control my situation.
Yeah.
Cease from trying to change my circumstances and trust God. Cease from trying to strive and make my life look like heaven, or, to me, a Sabbath is stop trying to work for God's approval. Stop trying to work for the approval of others. Stop trying to work things out and feel like you can make life work out the way you want it to do. Trust me, and trust God, and that to me is a Sabbath. That to me is not one day a week. That's every day, 24/7. And I think that principle of the Sabbath, of being able to step back and look what God's doing in your life, whether you understand it or you're not, but being able to delight and worship Him, no matter what your circumstances are. That to me is the ultimate.
Yeah.
Of the Sabbath.
Well, and I think when you practice it in that 24-hour period once a week, it reminds you to do that throughout the other days, because you're kind of always, you're like, okay, this weekend or
your focus
whenever
is on God.
It's coming up, it's coming and it's on your head. It's on your mind. It's just like anything. It's like a reminder. You see something in your calendar. Oh yeah, I have that in a few days.
Yeah.
So I think having the once a week, 24 hours helps you with the other 24 hours, when you're not actually Sabbathing, but it helps every
single day, every time you put anything into practice that is going to get your focus and your mind on what God's doing, it's never a bad thing. Yeah. And it's going to build on that. So I just think it's great to be able to sit back and, because a lot of people are going to turn this off if you think, I don't want to hear about the Sabbath. I don't have a problem about not working.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I applaud. But if you don't have a problem about not working, do you have a problem about not trusting in your own abilities?
Yeah, like resting in the Lord.
And resting and trusting God and being delighted in what God's doing, whether or not you can see what He's doing or not. That's a whole nother ballgame. That's another level of Sabbath that I think we all need to step back and be able to do. If there's one thing that I'd say, Cara, that in talking with people, that is the hardest for people that want to really surrender their lives to God, is to let God be God of their lives. And I think stepping back and saying, you know what, God, I'm not you. And I'm going to worship you. And I'm going to step back. And I'm just going to take a moment. And I just want to reflect on what you're doing and who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be your Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you had to work 24/7 because that's your job, you can still do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the biggest principles that's the most beneficial spiritually, physically, and emotionally, is if you just step back and trust God.
Mm-hmm.